Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. Contrary to what some people on Reddit and Twitter may tell you, there is no correct way to play a TTRPG. Some people play for the gritty gameplay, others for the equal parts comedic and tragic roleplay. And some people do it simply because they were starved for attention as a child and desperately want an excuse to pretend to be a goblin while forcing their friends to watch. I'll give you 3 guesses which category I fall under. While there is no correct way to enjoy a tabletop RPG, there is absolutely a wrong way to do it. Enter the min-maxer. For those of you who are new to D&D, a min-maxer is someone who pores over the rulebook as if it were their Bible. And no, it's not to get in touch with their spirituality or atone for their sins. Trust me, the sinning is just getting started. No, dear listener, it's so they can make the most busted D&D characters imaginable, and then laugh at the DM for daring to consider running a balanced combat encounter in their game. While min-maxing on its own isn't inherently bad, you know that you f***ed up when there's an entire saga written about you on RPGHorrorStories. The saga I have for you today stars a player who goes through not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 characters in only 1 year. Why? Well, let's just say it's because the meta keeps changing, and a sick gamer like himself just can't help but be the ultimate that guy. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive right into the horrifying world of r/RPGHorrorStories. Enjoy. This week's story comes to us from Reddit user Ultron7 and is titled, How a Min-Maxing Metagamer Went Through 5 Characters in 1 Year. Part 1. Spoilers for Murder in Baldur's Gate. Back in college, I decided to DM my first D&D game. I was gonna run the story Murder in Baldur's Gate, since I had played it the previous summer, and as a first-time DM, running a published module seemed to be the best way to go. For context, we were playing 3.5 at the time, and everyone involved in the game had next to no experience playing any form of D&D. We knew the basics like armor class and skill points and all of that, but it was understood that we were going to be fast and loose with the rules because we didn't know, because it. We were mostly there to have fun and not get into the nitty-gritty of the game. This is the story of my first encounter with that player. You all know the one, there always is one. And boy do I wish I knew what I know now, because it would have saved us a lot of headaches. The cast. Half-orc rogue, half-elf bard, elf monk. PP, the problem player, started out as a human paladin. Boy, you all know how I feel when it comes to using letters as names in these stories. Plus, I already got a problem player named PP in my rogues gallery. So, let's go ahead and call this schmuck Pikachu for the rest of the saga. Why? Because I feel like it. And what are you gonna do, dislike the video? I'm so beyond stupid, I don't even know where Susan hid my channel's dislikes anymore. So the game is divided up into 10 chapters. It was extended a bit as the rogue and the bard managed to accidentally summon a devil into the city, as you do. They all managed to kill it with the help of an NPC, a cleric named Eliza. Eliza, unbeknownst to the party, was super evil, and was going to be manipulating the events of what I had hoped to be a longer campaign. However, for that moment, Pikachu had awkwardly started to romance her, which she was cool with. Perfect chance to corrupt him into becoming a blackguard. He had asked her if she wanted to go to an evening church service with him, and she, of course, agreed. As they left the party, they were ambushed by 3 wizard cultists who managed to put him to sleep and take him to their lair, where they would be going to attempt a ritual to create a werewolf. The party went looking for him and eventually were able to track him down, but through a series of bad rolls, they were unable to prevent the paladin from being turned into a werewolf. Most of the cultists were killed as a result, but the party was able to knock him out. But now they had 30 days until the next full moon, when he would turn again and likely slaughter his way through the town. Unfortunately, things did not get better for him. During this game, they had allied themselves with the leader of the town guard, a Judge Dredd-typed guy named Ravengard. A plot point in the game is that the god of murder has been reborn and is looking for a chosen champion. He is deciding between 3 people in the city and is slowly corrupting them to make them more violent and bloodthirsty. Whoever the players help more ends up becoming the chosen, because they have caused the most death and destruction in the city with the players' help. At this point, Ravengard was well on his way into becoming a military dictator of Baldur's Gate, and after this event with the cultists, one of them being a priest from the main church, he decided, "F it, time for a coup," and rallied the players and his men to storm the upper city and kill the dukes and the religious leaders. Pikachu wanted to be put in charge of the assault on the church, which Ravengard gave him, and he led 50 guys to storm the church and capture, or kill, everyone inside. Now the head priest and everyone else was 100% innocent of any wrongdoing, and the head priest was vocal about this. However, the paladin did not want to hear it, and killed him real good. Especially when I mentioned that the priest had this lightning mace that was really cool. Now, back in 3.5, paladins had to be very strict and lawful. Not much room for a gray area at all. In particular, killing a neutral good priest without a proper trial tends to be very frowned upon, especially since he showed no remorse, and his first thought after killing the priest was to loot the body and return to killing all of the other priests in the temple. I let him know that his character felt wrong about killing these people, but he just shrugged and said, "Well, I think they're all cultists, so I help the gods kill them all." So, yeah, he ended up getting his paladin powers stripped after that, and he was noticeably salty that playing a paladin would have consequences. But that wouldn't end up mattering much, as a few sessions later we moved into Chapter 9, the last chapter before the final boss fight. The Thieves' Guild of the town had grown into a rebellion against Ravengard, and had staged a massive prison break. The prison was on a small island about 100 feet into the sea, and connected into the mainland by a bridge. The party notices this, and Pikachu runs out to assist the guards in stopping the surge of prisoners from entering Baldur's Gate, and he is prepared for this. A 16-strength, full-plate tower shield at the ready. He plants himself as the swarm comes to him. He rolls his strength check. 2. The swarm rolls theirs. 20. He is thrown from the bridge into the water below and immediately starts to drown, weighed down by all of his heavy gear. And man, he could not make a swim check to save his life. He had to roll a 15 to get his head above water. His rolls? 4, 2, 8, 11, and 4. Even after he dropped his prized mace and shield, the full plate still worked against him too much. The bard jumped in to save him, but strength and con were his dump stats. He did 3d6 in order, and the dice were not kind to him, and had to abandon Pikachu to his fate lest he drown as well. As a last-ditch effort, Pikachu tried to force his werewolf transformation, but his dice just refused to work with him, and he drowned. But I felt bad for him. He was a decent guy, and the dice just fucked him. That's the game after all. But I did like the thematic idea that he can just Hulk out to save his life and give some payoff to the werewolf curse. So then and there I made a new rule. You get one time where, when you should die, something intervenes and saves you. The hand of God comes in, you go Super Saiyan, something pulls you from the brink, etc., etc. But you only get one. Afterwards, you are on your own. That's it for the full game. If you die and bring in a new character and they die, your second character does not get that one. The table agreed, and I told Pikachu that this would activate his curse and get him out of drowning. But he would be a werewolf in the town. If he let his paladin die, he could still use his one on his next character. He said yes to saving his paladin. So the party watches as a naked werewolf jumps out of the sea and onto the bridge, before turning his claws on the last remaining prisoners who hadn't crossed the bridge already. The players had to step in and knock the wolf out in quite the epic showdown. Almost a TPK with much Assassin's Creed jumping off and jumping on the walls going down, but they eventually beat the werewolf. Unfortunately, the bard had made it back to the mainland and saw an angry Ravengard looking at the werewolf. He had known that Pikachu was a werewolf and had agreed to let him stay in the city as long as he controlled his form and left before the next full moon. He looks to the bard, who had been brown-nosing the hell out of Ravengard, and says, "Kill him." What I had planned here was that either the party disobeys Ravengard and goes into hiding, maybe join that Thieves Guild rebellion, or tries to find a way to convince Ravengard to let Pikachu live. While the party was debating what to do, Pikachu says that if he wakes up, that he'll just kill himself because of all the bad things he's done. The players try to talk him out of it, but he refuses and says, no, he can't live with himself anymore. He is definitely gonna kill himself. So they all look confused at me and I shrug, not knowing what to do in this situation, and they let it drop. The bard gaining a bunch of favor with Ravengard by putting a crossbow bolt into the paladin's skull. And thus ends the first character. Your first thought might be, a little odd maybe, but nothing too bad here. And you'd be right. This was by far his best character. A little quiet and not prone to role-playing, but he was just an awkward guy. And this was his first D&D game, so NBD. But what I did not realize is what was going through his head. He did not want to die and make a new character because of any role-playing reason, but because he had lost his gear in the sea along with his paladin abilities, and didn't want to deal with being weaker for a little bit. The beginnings of the min-maxing wheels began to turn, and I was not prepared for what would come. So I want to take some time to talk about this "you only get one" rule that the DM introduced here. I absolutely love this home rule, and I use it in most of my games. When you run a more roleplay heavy game but still want combat to have a bit of bite, I highly recommend adding an out like this for your players. Nobody likes to see an unfinished story, and if you've got a character that's just on the verge of completing their character arc, only for their brain to get eaten by an illithid just as they are about to cross the finish line, well, it doesn't feel too good. Whenever a character dies in one of my campaigns, I sit down with the player whose character has died, and I ask them, are you okay with Mark Zuckerberg the lizard folk's tale ending here? And from there they have one of two options. 1. They agree to let their character go and we fold their character sheet into a little paper boat, and we hold a little Viking funeral for them in a hotel pool somewhere. Or 2, we talk about a way to save their character that ultimately changes them in some way. Losing a limb, developing some deep-rooted trauma, anything to change the way that the player plays that character, and turns the character's near-death experience into an excuse to make their roleplay dynamic, while also giving them an opportunity to finish their character's story. Now, it's important to emphasize that each player only gets one of these per campaign, because unfortunately this system can be ripe for abuse. Which is exactly what I think we're gonna see as the saga progresses. How a min-maxing metagamer went through 5 characters in 1 year. Part 2. It is with the new character that we see this guy start to unravel a little bit. His new character was a fighter/sorcerer multiclass. Cool mix, very sword and sorcery. I can get behind that. But I noticed something on his sheet that rubbed me the wrong way. With the starting gold I allowed him to have, he had made sure to bring several vials of silver sheen, which would turn a weapon to silver back in 3.5 to just mess up some werewolves. Now, the only reason he had those was because he thought that we would be fighting more werewolves. He had bitten the rogue in the previous session, and there were 2 other people who had turned at the same time as he did who escaped from the city. I didn't have plans for them to come back anytime soon, but the fact that he walked in with a character with items specifically meant to counter what he thought we would be facing when I hadn't even made that available to anyone else raised a bit of a red flag for me. I also noticed that he had really good stats. Now, everyone else had rolled 3d6 in order. Their decision because, it would be interesting. And he walked in with nothing below a 12. 4d6 dropped the lowest to sign whatever. I didn't have a problem with this in and of itself because I had told them that they can do whatever they felt comfortable with, within reason, for rolling stats, so I brushed it off as whatever. It honestly wasn't the best timing for him to come in, since it was almost the end of the semester, and they were only one session from the end of the campaign, but whatever. I added in a mini side quest to allow the party to run into him. They were stopping a trio of vampires from stealing a magic mystery box, and Pikachu's player sees a vampire running to ambush the party and joins in to help. Neat! So they beat the weaker vampires when the stronger one walks up out of the shadows. Me, as the vampire. Impressive. But I will be taking that box now for my master. Rogue, who are you? What's in this box that's worth killing over? Me, you don't even know what you hold. Pikachu, I cast Rave Enfeeblement at him, 17 to hit. Me, that misses. The vampire dodges it and says, I see you are spirited, but... Pikachu, I cast it again, 15 to hit. At this point, I was starting to get annoyed. Like, come on man, I was trying to drop some important info for you to set up the next part of the story. Your party had questions that you wouldn't let the guy answer, so I figured, fuck it. And now the pissed off vampire charges Pikachu and drains him for 6 constitution points before escaping. I was hoping that an aggressive response to that behavior would teach him a lesson not to interrupt, and just start shooting spells off like a murder hobo. Regardless, the party thanks him for his help, and offer him to join them in working for the town guard. Pikachu, maybe later. I'm kinda tired after that fight, I'll find you guys later maybe. And he just walks off to sleep at an inn for the night. The rest of the party was confused as to why he was resisting joining them. It wasn't for character reasons. No one at this table had any kind of backstory that couldn't be summarized in 1 or 2 sentences. But there really wasn't anything that they could really do about it, so they just left him. I was confused too, and things were supposed to be happening soon in the game that necessitated him joining the party sooner than later. So I ended up running a mini side plot where he meets with the leader of the Thieves Guild, who gives him some info that he could then take to the party to help them integrate him into the town guard easier. That did not go as planned. Through some bad rolls and poor planning on his part, he was caught by 2 thieves walking directly into the town guard's barracks. The Thieves Guild leader was also being corrupted by the god of murder, so they were quick to jump to assassination. When he eventually made it to the town guard headquarters, his first words to the party and to Ravengard, the leader of the guards, was, I worked for the Thieves Guild, but now I want to join the guards. Now, remember that Ravengard was slowly becoming corrupted by the god of murder? This was making him more paranoid and more prone to violence and mistrust, on top of the city already falling apart around him, adding to his stress. So when this guy walks in saying, I'm a spy you've never heard of from the Thieves Guild, his first thought was, this guy is full of crap. But for the sake of the plot, I had Ravengard say, the validity of your claims will be seen tomorrow. The party will look after you. And if they vouch for you after then, I will hear what you have to say. For now, you shall sleep outside. Okay, bit of a rough start, but we are on track now at least. So the next day rolls around and they're given the task of arresting people throughout the city for a massive execution. An easy mission that would be mostly roleplay, that would allow Pikachu to get to know the party better and for them to learn about him and come to like him like he did his old paladin. But when the party walked up to the first house, Pikachu, can the rest of the party see me? Me, I guess not, if you wanted to be behind him. Pikachu, okay, I run away. Me and everyone else. Huh? Pikachu, yeah, I don't like this town. I turn my back on them and run. Confused silence for about 15 seconds. Rogue, I guess, do we hear him? Me, roll a listen check. Rogue, 19. Bottom line, he got away, faded into the crowd, and the party had no reasonable way of finding him. Me, so you've left the party. What do you want to do? Pikachu, I leave the city. My character doesn't really feel safe here. Everyone wants me dead. Me, okay, so back to the others. And I continue the game from there. He then starts to angrily erase his character sheet, mumbling about how he spent 3 hours on this. as if it was my fault that he left the party. I think he wanted me to run a side story of him, but I had nothing prepared for anything like that, and I wasn't going to delay or take time away from the other 3 people at my table to make up stuff on the spot for him. And his reasoning for leaving, that his character didn't feel safe in the town, yeah, that's kind of the point. The town is going to shit, and you need to pick sides if you want to survive. Every character has been put in danger by another group. They've been targets of assassinations by the thieves, extorted by the nobles, ambushed by were-rats. Hell, his last character was abducted by cultists. He knows exactly what his character was getting into with this city. Or how about the simple question of, why is your character an adventurer if he runs at the first sign of danger? And it's not like there was no safe haven for him, oh no. The party went out of their way to be nice to him, and if he had made it through this day, Ravengard would absolutely have accepted him as a town guard right then. But hey, I'm not gonna force you guys to stick together if you want to bail. That's your decision, and you can live with it and the consequences. And the kicker? He walked into this session with this new character sheet, and the session began with his old character dying. But he was still salty that his paladin died, since he complained to me that there isn't any party cohesion. No one even tried to save my character. I referred to you to part 1 to illustrate how this is not true. But you had already walked in with a new character. What were people supposed to think by that point anyway? Oh, and did I mention that this was all one session? His character couldn't even make it through one session. And when I get to part 3 up, you will see that it wasn't the last time that he only lasted one session. Not quite as interesting, but trust me, from here on out, this is where it goes from mildly inconvenient to straight up absurd, cheating, game-breaking bullshit. Oh no, Pikachu has got some potential to be one of the worst that guys we have ever had on the channel. And OP is telling us that Pikachu's bullshit isn't even bullshit yet? Just a quick little PSA before we move on to part 3. Please let the villain monologue. Yeah, I know it's not realistic to let the bad guy preach to you about how powerful they are, or why they're actually the good guy, or yada yada yada. But you know that your DM has just finished Elden Ring, and has been ruminating in all those badass boss cutscenes and second phase transformations, and they've been practicing their line delivery and facial expressions in the mirror for like 5 hours all week, preparing for the climactic showdown they have planned for Saturday night. It is so incredibly demoralizing to just have whatever your villain is saying be cut off by some sweaty nerd shouting, "I shoot it!" It's basically saying, "I don't care about your stupid fluff, DM. I want to skip to the part where I don't gotta hear you talk." Of course, most players that do this are actually going for the realistic tactical advantage that cutting off the bad guy gives you. But it's hard for some DMs not to take it personally, you know? There really is no harm to just letting the villain monologue. You're gonna get to kill them, that's the whole reason that they're in the game. But after all the time that the DM has spent preparing encounters and building a world for this bad guy to try to take over, it can't hurt to let them have this one little victory lap. But as for Pikachu here, Christ alive, how is it the DM's fault that you ultra min-maxed a character for 3 hours? One lesson that all people who play D&D need to understand is that no character is designed to be invincible. The sense of entitlement needed to get pissed at the DM for harming your character after you spent 3 hours building them correctly is baffling. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, because we are not even halfway done. How a min-maxing metagamer went through 5 characters in 1 year. Part 3. So before we get into character number 3, I think it's important to understand some red flags that I never did. This guy loved playing games. Mario Kart, Smash Bros, Pokemon, haha! See, it was fucking destiny he would be named Pikachu. Magic the Gathering, Talisman, etc, etc. But I tell a lie. He didn't like to play games, no, he liked to win games. games. He would play until he mastered the game or spent whatever money he needed to make sure that he had the best method to win. Not only that, but he needed you to acknowledge that he won. He was the kind of guy who would spend $80 on magic cards meant to successfully counter the deck that the rogue used. If he ever lost a game, he would ban or alter rules to eliminate any aspect of the game that he did not like. This is where the min-maxing started coming in. He didn't see this as a game, but as a video game that he could break. After his second character, died, I had to deal with him coming over to the room every 30 minutes asking about creating a character. Normally I wouldn't mind. I love character creation and I think it's pretty fun. My biggest mistake that I made throughout this entire ordeal was in this moment. He asked if there was any restriction on characters and I said that he can use any race or class as long as he ran it through me first. Now at first I was thinking, maybe he can play a hill dwarf instead of a normal dwarf to get a +2 strength instead of a +2 con. Or maybe he'll play a sea elf or a kender from Dragonlance. I was wrong. I had to reject so many characters within that 1 week between games. Just as an example, he tried to bring in a were-tiger with 31 strength, and was noticeably upset that I wouldn't let him play this character. Mind you, the party were around level 4 to 5 at this point. After a while, he settled on a fighter who used flaming gauntlets as weapons, and had a hat of disguise that was a luchador mask. Now this next part is very important. He told me that whenever he uses his hat of disguise, no matter what form he takes, he always has the luchador mask. That's right. No matter how he disguised himself, he wanted the mask to be visible to everyone. I gave him fair warning that doing this was kinda stupid, because it negates the whole point of disguised self. You can tell right away who he was, but he didn't care. And as you might expect, he rolled his stats and just so happened to get lucky enough to roll 2 18s for his character in a row. Now, I'm not saying he cheated since I have no proof, but fellow DMs, you know the feeling that I felt. Looking back, I don't know if this was a character meant to disrupt the game and fuck around or not. But we were out of time, and this was going to be the last session of the semester and the ending of murder in Baldur's Gate. So the session starts with the rest of the party engaged in a pitched fight at the docks. Pikachu walks into town and I give him the scene. The streets are empty, the dock is on fire, and it sounds like a massive fight is taking place. His response?
I start skipping through the city.
Okay, that's odd. Anyway, he makes it to the docks, proclaiming,
This is what I see in my mind.
Because I guess his character is supposed to be insane. Now everyone else is helping the town guard, and the citizens fight off the Thieves Guild in an epic battle with ships and catapults and fire. The rogue is going one-on-one with the guild's leader. The bard is in a boat chasing down some guild arsonists, and the monk is manning the catapults and giving orders. What does Pikachu do? Pikachu: I disguise myself as one of the town guard. Me: cool. Are you still wearing the luchador mask? Pikachu: of course! I walk up to some guards. Me: okay, yeah. You see some guards on the fringe of the fighting with their backs turned to you. Pikachu: I walk up to them, spin one of them around, and tell them that I am their commander. Me: okay. Well, these panicked guards see this strange man in a weird mask yelling at them that he is their commander, which they know isn't true because Raven Guard's like 30 feet away. And they know that you are not a guard because none of them wear a fucking luchador mask, and they will try to dogpile you. I didn't want him to die because this was literally the session after his last one did, so they were just trying to subdue him. He makes some pretty good intimidation and bluff checks, and they get off of him, proclaiming that he is under arrest and are now brandishing swords at him. Now, what I had hoped was that Pikachu could actually get on their good side so he can join the party. Me: okay. The 3 frightened guards have their swords brandished out at you. They look like they don't know what to do with this sudden new element to the fight. They don't look like they're gonna strike you, and they might be willing to hear you out or accept your aid. Pikachu: I punch one of the guards in the face. 17 to hit, 25 damage. The guards had like 12 hit points. The rest of the party: Jesus, dude! Pikachu. Yeah, and then I use my second attack to kill the other one. 19 to hit, 20 damage. Me. Are you sure? You can see that Ravengard is within full view of this. Pikachu. Oh, well, yes. Well, there goes any notion of him joining the party. Doesn't help when you kill the allies of the party in view of their boss. Only now does Pikachu realize that he maybe might have fucked up, and once again tries to flee. Ravengard picks up a crossbow and crits for enough damage to take him down to -1 HP. He then tells the town guard to take him to the prison and strip him of all his gear, while the rest of the party finishes up their side of the epic fight, if I do say so myself, while I put this character in timeout for a bit. At this point, Pikachu starts to pout and gripe about how unfair all of this is, while his insane ass is in prison while the rest of the party is out enjoying a party in their honor. He is so annoyed that the other people are having fun that he gets up and leaves the table saying, "Call me when I get to actually do something." Fair enough. I know the feeling of doing jack shit in a session, and that sucks. At this point in the plot, Ravengard is ready to make his final move, and goes to the prison to launch fireworks into the city square to kill a fuck ton of people. We bring Pikachu back in to tell him that he sees a massive demon-looking creature walking through the prison along with some of the guards. He doesn't do anything. Fair enough. Then a firework explosion knocks one of the bars of his cell loose, giving him a chance to escape, maybe even get his gear back. His response? I know what you're doing and I won't do it. Okay, well, you told me to bring you back in when you were back. Guess you don't want to stop the genocidal demon monster, so back to the party, I guess. A few minutes back with them, and they are trying to escape this rain of alchemist fire and fireworks by climbing buildings. Me, Rogue. You are climbing the wall when an explosion hits right above your head. Rogue. Oh shit. Well, I can attempt to leap to the side and... Pikachu. Okay, fine, I'll do it. I roll the pull on the loose cell bar. He does, and after I finish up what he was interrupting, I tell him to make a move silent and hide check to avoid the guards while he looks for his gear. He fails miserably and gets attacked by 2 guards at the same time. This is where the stupid nature of the character starts to be more detrimental, as he is just yelling and screaming like a gibbering insane penguin. And before you asked, his lowest score was still a 10, so it's not like he was role-playing his stats. And yes, he made sure to scream and yell everything that this character did. Not a simple, but... Ah, Jesus, I gotta read that, huh? F*** me. Every round for his attacks with no strategy or tactics. He goes 2-on-1 completely unarmed, with no armor, without thinking about any kind of strategy, and ends up getting knocked out a round before the party comes in to save his ass. They end up needing to get most of their health potions, in order to get him about to 7 hit points. And I guess, in character, he responds by saying, "You now hurts me." And then he starts just shivering and convulsing because he doesn't have his mask. And he won't stop gibbering about his face and mask like he was some kind of mentally handicapped Rorschach from Watchmen. The rest of the party looked like they were about to shoot themselves just to stop dealing with this bullshit. See, there are character traits, and then there's just being f***ing annoying. Eventually he gets his shit back, and they eventually go fight the final boss. After getting knocked unconscious again by running headfirst into a flaming room with 2 elite guards before the final boss. To be fair, the fight actually goes pretty well. They are all being smart, doing damage and generally f***ing Ravengard up, until I started playing Ravengard smart. He was getting low on health and wanted to find a way to get away from the party to pick them off one by one. Okay, he's on a ledge to a 50-foot drop. If he jumps from here or throws them off, that would solve some of his problems. When Pikachu's turn came around, he rolled 2 nat 1s in a row. Being that he is a fist fighter, I thought that it would make sense that his arm would be injured in some kind of way or something like that. So I had Pikachu make a strength check against Ravengard, which he failed. So I said that Ravengard grabbed his arm and snapped it, holding on to his now broken arm. Then the monk goes in to save him, and I shit you not, he also rolls a 1. And the same thing happens to him, his arm breaking immediately and Ravengard having a hold of him. So I had Ravengard jump off the 50-foot ledge, planning to use the 2 guys to break his fall. And immediately this is where the party started to act really smart. The rogue starts to Assassin's Creed wall slide his way down, and the bard jumps off the ledge and manages to impale Ravengard, forcing him to let go of both Pikachu and the monk. The monk uses his slow fall to mitigate the damage, the bard used his ring of featherfall, and the rogue tried to jump to catch Pikachu. It didn't work, so Pikachu faceplants into the ground, dropping him to -7 hit points. The rest of the party maybe had about 5 hit points between the 3 of them, and after that stunt, Ravengard was fucked up, but still alive. And now the party had a choice. Either dogpile on the final boss and kill him ASAP, or go and try to stabilize the weird fucker they had just met who had been acting completely insane the entire session. Needless to say, it was an epic fight and Pikachu died. Second character gone in their first session. Now granted, this time was more due to bad luck than anything, but I had hoped that the next character he would bring in would be a little bit more reasonable, and maybe work with the party after this experience. Given that there is a part 4, that would not be the case. Hey there! It's me, Drake, your humble narrator, here with some advice for all you crazy kids looking to play equally crazy characters. Are you ready? The best way to win a team game is to work with your team. Pretty crazy, right? Just lock me right the up and throw me in the loony bin, cause that had to be the most insane hot take ever given on YouTube. But seriously, even in the last part, we started to see inklings of Pikachu's personality shining into his characters. It feels like to me that Pikachu wants all of the attention on him all the time. Going into a game with the mentality of, if I'm not in the scene and it's not about me, then I don't even want to be there, is such a toxic attitude to have. 1, it's just straight up not gonna happen. And 2, if it does happen, it's not gonna happen for long, since nobody wants to engage with a DM who turns the campaign into the Pikachu show. When Pikachu said, "Come and get me when I can actually do something," that wasn't what he meant. What he really meant was, "Come and get me when I can do everything." Which is why Pikachu keeps getting bodied despite building all these broken characters. OP said it best. Pikachu is viewing D&D like it's some kind of video game, when D&D is in fact far from it. Unlike in a video game where the limit of your character's power comes from their own abilities, D&D flips the script. Your character's power is limited by how much your party is able and willing to help you succeed using their abilities. Sure, a bear totem barbarian is nigh invincible at higher levels, but one successful casting of dominate person followed by the evil wizard saying walk off that cliff, and that once invincible character is done. At this point, it is definitely time to stop the game and say, hey Pikachu, you really need to make a character that's gonna play nice with the party, or else you're not gonna be able to play at all. But we unfortunately know that OP did not do that. And Pikachu is probably spending 3 more hours of his life gearing up for round 4 of being an insufferable asshat. How a min-maxing metagamer went through 5 characters in 1 year. Part 4. So we took a break from the game as winter break rolled in, which was pretty good timing. It gave me a month to plan out the next sessions of entirely new material after a semester of doing a module. Unfortunately, this also gave Pikachu a chance to read up on every 3.5 book that ever existed, and do research on the most powerful combos out there so that his ego could be stroked by everyone at the table. Truthfully, I cannot tell you exactly what he was playing. I think it was like a paladin sorcerer as a reborn dragonborn. A human who was blessed by Bahamut or something to become a half-dragon, with some kind of dragon ability or something. I think it's in the Draconomicon. I went over to his dorm room to check out the new character, and first thing I noticed weren't his stats. He once again seems to have gotten an 18 in both strength and charisma, along with a 16 con, 12 dex, and intelligence, and a 13 wisdom. Okay, sure. But it was the fact that he had wings. As a new DM, I was very hesitant about that because I knew that flying gave people massive advantages in combat, and being able to do it at will could be game-breaking for parties at lower levels, level 5 or 6 at this point. I expressed my concerns with this, and he assured me that it was in fact balanced. Pikachu. See, at up till level 6, it just gives me +5 to jump checks. Then at level 8, I can glide if I jump from a tall place. And then it won't be until level 12 that I can actually fly. On top of that, his starting gold, calculated from some website that allowed him to buy mithril, I think, plates, and a valorous lance that did ×4 damage when he landed a mounted charge. A little weird since no one had horses and we were going into an area that horses couldn't go into, but okay, sure, I guess that's okay. What's the worst that can happen? Well, even with a super powerful knight and shining armor who is 8 feet tall and made of kick-ass and muscle, he still managed to f*** himself out of sheer stupidity. So the entire time that the party are in this dungeon, I've been hinting that there is in fact a rust monster in there with them. Things like rusted off doors, spears with no heads, half-dissolved coins, the works. Eventually they turn a corner, and I describe a gray slod whipping a rust monster to help him find secret doors. The rest of the party's reaction? Rogue. Oh hell no, I'll take the slod. Bard. F*** that noise, I like my magic sword. I'm staying back and fighting the slod. Monk. I could hit it, but my pendant is made out of metal, so maybe after the slod. Pikachu. I guess I'll fight the rust monster. And then he does so, and he chooses to get into melee combat with the damn thing. And yes, he knew exactly what a rust monster was. And then he acted all sulky when one of his magical swords and his armor got destroyed. Not only that, but the rest of the party is having a tough fight with the slod, which they don't really know anything about, since it's not one of the more well-known creatures in the world. The bard says, okay, well, I'll throw one of my alchemist fire at it. Pikachu, don't do that. It has damage resistances to fire. Rogue, how do you know? Pikachu, oh, I just looked it up on my phone. Oh, and make sure you don't get hit by it because it'll lay eggs inside of you. Rogue, dude, shut the f*** up. I don't want to hear that. Pikachu, what? I'm just trying to help. Rogue, dude, that's cheating. Don't tell us stuff like that. Let us figure it out on our own. I'm just sitting there stunned since, wow, yeah, straight up blatant cheating. I should also mention that he had stopped rolling dice at this point. Yeah, he figured that, since his rolls kept fucking him, that he was just gonna roll dice on his phone from now on. And suddenly, there were fewer and fewer rolls below a 10 popping up. Now I can't say that he was lying, but it was very easy to hit the roll button a few times quickly until you got a good number and actively refused to roll the dice again, so... Oh, but we're not done with the cheating. See, the culmination of the dungeon they were in was a cold iron dagger that was important to the rogue's backstory. It was going to work out good since the town they had moved to after Baldur's Gate was secretly run by an incubus that they were going to fight, and this dagger was going to be a good way for the party to defeat them, and it was set up as such. An epic encounter was about to go down. The devil revealed himself in the town square and the fight was on. The bard started singing his song. The monk got a good few hits in, and it was going to be Pikachu, and then the rogue would finally get their turn. Pikachu. I fly 20 feet up in the air, and then I dive straight down towards the creature at a 45-degree angle. I do 75 damage. Silence falls over the table. Me and everyone else. What? How? Pikachu. Oh, well, because I'm flying down at a 45-degree angle. So it's like I'm doing a mounted charge. It's a rule from Dragon Magazine number, insert number here. So I get to do X times damage, and because I'm using 2 hands, I get an additional 1.5 damage. Me, But you told me that you couldn't fly. Pikachu.
Oh, well, after I showed you my character for the first time, I found a feat that made my wings stronger, so now I actually can fly.
Me, the newbie DM who can't even begin to verify this at the moment. Well, okay. You kill the Incubus in one hit. Session over. And then he sits there all smug, looking around at the other players, waiting for everyone else to sing his praises for his awesome character, and tell him how much of a badass motherfucker he is because he snuck some obscure as hell feat into his character at the last minute, because he knew I would let it slide in character creation. He got no such praise, and against my better judgment, I let him keep all his stuff, since I figured that it was my fault anyway for letting all of this slip past me. Even though I would be told later by a way more experienced DM that Pikachu's claim on flying down being a mounted charge was bullshit. So, what do I know? It was during this time when he blew up at me for what he thought was unfair treatment in the party. The party was going on a mission to help save the bard's baby mama. Though initially, Pikachu wanted to ignore the quest altogether and was about to leave the party because they were told there was a mission the king wanted to give them when they were in the capital, and thought that this backstory side quest would be a waste of his time. They ended up in a fight with this feral halfling bandit leader, who in a contest of strength was able to beat Pikachu in a straight roll. Both of them rolled a nat 20, and the halfling's strength was better because he was secretly a werewolf. Pikachu was livid. They won the fight in the end, but the idea that his character had gotten beaten by a halfling in pure strength pissed him off. He was so pissed off that he drafted an email stating his complaints with my game, including such gems as, "The dice f*** me when I roll. You destroyed my mithril armor when I fought that rust monster. There were consequences when I didn't follow the paladin code. You have no problem killing my characters." Among many, many more stuff like that. I should have just let him walk away from the game, but I responded to each and every one of his bitchy complaints, clearly explaining in very polite terms why he was a dumbass. Yeah, I killed your first character because you told me to, dummy. But I eventually talked him down and tried as a DM to give him more moments of being badass that he so clearly craved, which really only led to him ditching the party to gather loot while the party kept exploring, and him waiting on them to come back. So how did this juggernaut eventually meet his end? Simple. He was a dumbass. At many points, you can point to something in this game and say that me as a DM have failed here, or made a mistake there, or I should have handled it like X. But this, what is about to happen, 100% on him. So I read the beginning of the Tyranny of Dragons game from 5e, and thought the intro would be a pretty cool scenario for them to experience. For those of you unaware, the party shows up in the city of Grenist, only to see it is being attacked by an adult blue dragon. The rest from there involves the party running in to save people and forming an evacuation. As soon as I describe the dragon descending on this town, everyone's pants immediately darken. All except for Pikachu. No, he flew up to the dragon with the intent to fight it. Once again, everyone is left speechless at the table. No one was expecting that. Rogue, what are you doing? Pikachu, fighting the dragon. It's a chromatic dragon and I gotta kill it. Bard, but you'd be fighting it alone. We can't help you from down here. Rogue, yeah, and that dragon is huge. It's gonna kick your ass. Me, yeah, you estimate it's at least an adult, if not larger. The wingspan is well over 50 feet. Pikachu, I'll be fine. I can take it. This goes on for a few minutes before I say, okay, Pikachu, I'm gonna level with you. I never do this, and I never will again. But as a DM, 2-player, you cannot take this. It is way too powerful for even the whole party to handle, let alone you. You will die if you fight this. DM to player, no bullshit. Pikachu, well, no one is having fun if I don't fight it. Yes, he f***ing said that. The rest of the party just sighed, leaned back, and waited for the show. So he casts a f*** ton of spells on himself in prep, but the dragon notices him coming. I give him a chance to back out as the dragon turns and says,
You, Dragonborn, I shall let you live, because you entertain me, but only if you leave now.
Pikachu says nothing and just attacks, and does pretty decent damage. The dragon opens his mouth to shoot off a lightning bolt, dropping him down to like 2 hit points. Pikachu. Surprised Pikachu. I knew it, it was prophecy. This man was always meant to be named Pikachu. Pikachu, surprised Pikachu face. Me. The dragon laughs again. You think if you run now, you might live. Pikachu. I attack again. Me. Okay, the dragon bites you. It does 33 damage. Pikachu. Oh, well, I'm dead. The rest of the table internally. No shit. Phew, that was a long one. But we still got one more character to go through. And man, if you can believe it, it gets worse. His absolute worst character is next. Cheating in RPGs. It's always gonna happen, but it's never a good look. But is metagaming actually cheating? I mean, after all the information that you're given is right there in the book, so how could it be cheating? Well, it depends on the table you're playing with. If you are playing at my table, absolutely I would consider it cheating. Immersion is so important to me and my group, and metagaming is one of the easiest ways to just shatter it into a million pieces. But some tables just want to have a number crunching factory and treat D&D as if it were some kind of video game. I mean, it's wrong and a crime against God, but I can't stop you from playing that way. Yet. Like I said, immersion is so important to the quality of my RPG experience. So when a member of my party shouts out the monster's exact weaknesses and HP, an evil little part of my brain becomes thankful that my dry erase battle mat easily wipes off both marker and blood stains. But in all seriousness though, it really is best just to not do it. Just because you want to play a number cruncher doesn't mean that everyone else at the table wants to. I know it could be hard to separate what you know from what your character knows, but there's actually an easy fix that I like to call the Witcher's way. In the Witcher franchise, the story places a huge emphasis on how most of the time Witchers spend working is actually spent doing research on the monster they are hunting. Most DMs like to give their players some downtime before they actually get to work. So, why not use that time to hit the books and have your character learn some info that you know? Visit a library, talk to an old mage, hit up that Monster Hunter NPC, which is totally not the DM's favorite edgy OC from high school, shut the f*** up, Ron, and make some investigation rolls. The DM gets to be their edgy high school OC again, and you get to use fire spells on those trolls. It's a win-win. Or at least, it would be, considering how with people like Pikachu, no one is allowed to win, or have fun. Oh, me, there's one more part to this story, isn't there? Oh boy, well, Mama always told me never leave a job undone. Let's go ahead and grit our teeth and pass this thing like a kidney stone. So on to character number 5, and he saved the worst for last. I mean, goddamn. God f***ing damn it. He thought that this was gonna get by me? He thought that this would be okay? So first, let me preface by saying that I really don't like psionics. They are kind of annoying and they add a new element to the game that is a massive troll for people to deal with, unless you basically say that magic and psionic are equivalent. But on to why you are here. What did he play? I am 99% certain that most of you will have no idea what this is. You ready? He was an 8th level spell to power erudite / spell thief. What the hell is an erudite? Well, TLDR for that class. You are a psionic who can cast magic spells using psi points. He also has no limits on the amount of spells that he can have, but he doesn't gain spells when leveling up. The only way he gains them is that he has to make contact with another wizard and learn the spells that they know, before meditating on them for 8 hours. Okay, kinda weird, but I guess it can work, because I can control when they meet wizards and what spells they know, right? Plus, when he first told me about this and was confused, he says to me, and I quote, "This character will be more of a support character, so that way everyone can share in the glory." So he has some potential. He's learned from his past mistakes of being an attention hog, only concerned with his character being the most awesomest with the biggest stats. He shows up with his character knowing literally over 100 spells. And I don't mean a lot of spells. I mean for the 5 spell levels he has, 0 through 4, there are a minimum of 20 spells for each level. Yeah, I counted. What the f***? And his reasoning? I couldn't decide which ones, so I got a lot. I read somewhere that you can pay a spellcaster 100 gold or something for them to teach you a spell, so I spent all my starting gold on that. Yeah, no shit, you have a lot. I told him right there, no, this is way too much. And keep in mind that everyone is level 8 at this point, and he thinks that this is what an average level 8 character is like? What the f***? At this point, I was kicking myself because of what I should have done. Start having penalties for dying. I mean, if your level 2 character dies, whatever, just make a new one with gear because it's still pretty early in the campaign, and it won't make much of a difference. What I decided to do now, because of shit like this, is that when you guys hit level 6, your grace period is over. You die, you start off 3 levels lower than the rest of the party. Not enough to make your character completely useless, but enough so you won't want to have them jump off a cliff to get a better character. Oh, and of course he had no stats below a 12, and 3 stats at 16. Jesus Christ. And his character was coming in with like 85 psi points or something, meaning that under these rules, this level 8 character could cast 85 first level spells, or 12 4th level spells. And how many spell slots total does an 8th level wizard have? 12, assuming no other bonuses. You're starting to see how this was busted AF. So the party meets with him and begins a fight with a super powerful drow wizard and some cultists. Pikachu is the support, right? Well, maybe he casts Bear's Endurance on the rogue, or Stone Skin on the monk, or he can just polymorph himself into a Hydra and cast all the buffs on himself to try and take every single bad guy on at once. You know, like a support. But wait, the bard is at really low HP. Surely this all-powerful demigod of a man has something in his pocket he can use to heal because he is the support. 1 spell. Up to 6 people gain 1 hit point a round for a minute. His only healing spell. Though in honesty, him doing that basically gave me full license to have the most powerful drow start throwing fireballs at him, and he couldn't even argue it, even when he almost died. So the party, now including a druid because a new player joined up, head to the capital city of the human world. I was going to give them a few sessions to stick around and side quest around there for a bit. And the druid was the best thing that could have happened to this party because he was the same DM who knew immediately that Pikachu was bullshitting a bunch of rules and came on to look after the party, showed them that they could do their own things. On his own initiative, he was volunteering at the local hospital and farms to boost crops production with magic. Everyone was having a blast. To give the arcane magic users something to do, I told Pikachu and the Bard about the Tower of High Sorcery, where they could actually join the Mages Guild. Now, this next part is undoubtedly the stupidest thing Pikachu ever did in this campaign. Even worse than charging a goddamn dragon. He asked around to see if anyone could make him a ring. He didn't roll great for investigation, so I had one of the students tell him that he knew a girl who was very good at making rings, but that she was part of the black-robed wizards. In case you don't know, the wizards from the Tower of High Sorcery are divided into 3 groups. The good and holy white robes, the thoughtful and neutral red robes, and the black robes, who are evil and deceitful. This is a known fact. A commoner would even know this. I had the wizard tell him that he wouldn't trust this black-robed wizard. So, of course, Pikachu just seeks her out and pays up front for the ring. Just thrusts a sack of 5,000 gold in her face and says, "Make this ring for me, please." This woman looks at him confused and pulls out a random ring from her pouch and says, yeah, I already have this one, here you go." And of course, he doesn't check to see if it's cursed. It was. Again, you can't really blame me for doing that. The motherfucker willingly walked up to someone he knew would be sketchy at best to buy a ring, and then doesn't have the foresight to check to see if it's actually a good item. Well, the next day, Pikachu and the Bard get underway with their trials to join the guild, and I decided to use this as an opportunity to tell Pikachu exactly what he was doing wrong. I had the head wizard explain their failings to them, making special note on not thinking things through or questioning suspicious things before he destroyed the cursed ring. I had hoped that this would help Pikachu play better. It did not. Now he was pissed at the girl for screwing him, and he wanted to get some revenge. Great, maybe he will have some good role-playing bits and start thinking through ways of fighting off a more powerful wizard. That was not the case. Instead, he goes up to her while she is working and just starts acting creepily nice. He'd stare at her for minutes on end, not saying anything, just watching her, following her, actively seeking her out. What are you working on? Do you need any help? Etc., etc. And just so we are clear, when I say creepy, I mean creepy. When he wanted to be, this guy could make you real uncomfortable. I remember honestly thinking that he might actually assault this NPC with the way he acted, and would just look at me with these wide, unblinking stares and creepy as serial killer smiles. He never did, and luckily that was never his intent. He was just a very weird and creepy dude when he wanted to be, and he just kept doing this for days on end in-game. So eventually I asked him what the hell he was doing. His reasoning? If I act creepily nice to her, she will either get so annoyed that she will publicly admit her deed and then be hated, or she will repent because I took the high road and then we can be friends. No. Just no. Flaw number 1. If you keep pissing her off like this, why won't she just shove a thunderbolt up your ass? Pikachu. Oh, I didn't think about that. Flaw number 2. People already don't trust her. She goes around wearing an evil black robe, so her admitting what she did probably won't harm her that much, if at all. She is publicly known for being evil, and on top of that, flaw number 3. Why would she care if she was hated? Do other evil wizards not do evil things because people won't like it? Didn't really think that one through, did ya, buddy? Pikachu. But if I make a really high diplomacy check, she will become my friend, and I rolled like a 30 or something because of some bullshit. Not really how that works. See, there's what the rules say happens, and what would actually happen. Diplomacy can't turn the evil lich good in one roll, or even 10 rolls. You can give as many heart-filled speeches as you want, but Asmodeus is still gonna light your ass on fire because it would be funny. At the end of the day, it's up to the DM to decide what would happen, or even if a roll should occur in the first place. This last story is what finally made the party tell me that Pikachu had to go, or they were gonna leave. While they were split up in the town, the monk got kidnapped by a group of devils and was being tortured. The druid overheard a rumor about the monk and immediately started searching for him, going back to the rest of the party to let them know what was up. Pikachu was late to the session, so of course he wasn't there. So the rest of the party had an awesome mission, sneaking past guards, scaling buildings, and fighting off a massive bone devil. Near the end of the fight, Pikachu showed up and I told him that from the Tower of High Sorcery, he could hear a massive explosion. When he got there, he sees the party jumping off a building, so he runs over. Their reaction? Holy shit, Cicero is framed for murder, we just killed Satan and there are 100 more devils on their way, we need to get the f*** out of here! His response? Okay, you all know where I'll be. And he left to go back to the Tower of High Sorcery. While everyone else was figuring out what the hell to do and healing the monk, he wanted to learn a new spell. Okay, maybe he's learning a spell that can help the group fight against the devils. Nope. After the 8-hour meditation session, he says, I will have some supper and then I'm going to bed. Me. Okay, the night passes and you wake up. What do you want to do? Pikachu. I will have breakfast and then go look for the girl who screwed me out of my money. When the party heard that, the bard said, okay, f*** it.
I go to the tower to find Pikachu and tell him that we need help.
Only then did Pikachu decide to rejoin the party. When they all get together, Pikachu casts 5 or 6 buffs on himself, and none on the party, as supports do. Now at this point, the whole party wanted this fucker gone. I mean, he literally ditched the party when he knew for a fact that A, they were in trouble, and B, this was the main thing going on in the city. Oh no, his own plot about creepily talking to a girl is way more important. No, that's not right. He is just more important. The rest of the party, just filler. Does he care about them? No, they just keep getting in the way of him killing things and showing how he can easily do 60 damage in a turn. Oh, and one more side tangent about his cheating. He is the worst kind of rules lawyer. See, he learned the rules to D&D very quickly. Now, it is always good to have someone who knows the rules to the game on hand, especially if the DM is new. However, you know exactly the kind of person I'm talking about.
Actually, I can do this as a swift action and then take a 5-foot step back as a free action, meaning that he can't take any actions or else he gets tripped.
Except ever since winter break, he's gotten worse. He will make sure everyone else follows the rule to a T, jumping down their throats if they dare to do something illegal. But if the rules do anything to harm him, well, he conveniently forgets about it. Let's look at a few examples, shall we? Because he is a spell thief with a master spell thief feat, he could steal up to level 3 spells when he was level 7, but he stole a level 4 spell at one point. So I asked him about it. He said,
well, this feat lets me use my character level instead of my class level when stealing spells.
Right, and a level 7 spell thief can only steal up to level 3 spells. They can't steal level 4 spells until level 8.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right, I guess the basic math of your level divided by 2 equals level of spell you can steal was a bit much for you. Another instance was his usage of meta magic in the game. The way it worked in 3.5 was, depending on the spell effect he wanted to use, like extending a spell's duration, it would raise the spell slot needed to cast that spell. So casting invisibility on yourself for 24 hours would be the level of invisibility plus 7 levels for the new effect. The other DM pointed that out to me, so I went back and did a little bit of a read-up on the Erudite class, since I wasn't entirely sure if he was using meta magic or meta psionics to accomplish most of the abilities he was using. But when I read it, I noted that they specifically could not use any meta magic feats. So maybe it was meta psionics. Well, no, that couldn't be it either, because there is no such thing as meta psionics that lets spells last 24 hours. On top of that, the persistent spell meta magic ability he had to be using would have required him to expend 9th and 10th level spell slots, which an 8th level character could never have. So when I asked him about this, he was quick to feign ignorance of such a small rule, like what spell slots he would have, and meekly offers to switch over to the meta psionics and is disheartened when I inform him that he wouldn't have persistent spell then, so he still can't turn invisible for 24 hours. But not even 2 minutes later, when I ask him about another weird psionic thing that I don't think he should have been able to do, Pikachu.
Well, according to the Complete Psionics Handbook, I'm allowed to do this if I pay enough power points and do some other bullshit. Here, I'll show you.
So he remembers the page from a non-core rulebook that lets him do some random bullshit. But does he remember his spell slot limit? Something that most spellcasters should know? Does he remember any of the negative aspects of his class? Nope. And this has been a consistent pattern across every game we've played, not just D&D. Anything that would hamper him insta-killing anything is just conveniently forgotten. If anyone else does well in anything, no. Something has to be wrong, and he will comb the rules to show you exactly why you are wrong and why you suck. This was the final straw. His selective memory when it came to rules, along with his broken-ass character and his complete disregard to the party, just got to be too much. At this point, either he didn't know what he was doing wrong, in which case, I can't help you, Or he did know what he was doing, in which case, f you. I finally nutted up and told him not to come back to any more games. And that was it. 5 characters in 1 year before he was finally booted from the group. 5 broken and busted characters. The deck was stacked in his favor with magic items and super obscure classes and feats, and he still lost 4 characters. The rest of the party? Well, they were still on their first with their 3d6 rolls in order. Well, it just goes to show, D&D is not a video game, where your higher numbers mean that you are better than your party. End of story. And thus concludes the saga of Pikachu. You know, in my years playing D&D, I've never actually seen someone play a psionic before, and I have to tell you, it's not hard to see why. My pea-brain can't even begin to comprehend the fucking novel you gotta read before you can even think about playing the class. I've watched XP to Level 3's video on it like 4 times, and I still have no idea what the f*** is happening in the pages of that class. But there is one thing that I do know. Despite their hours of research and plotting, it's always the min-maxers and metagamers who always become the weakest link. Why? Well, like I said before, they're so busy trying to figure out how they can get stronger that they neglect even the slightest notion of the party itself being a cohesive unit. We saw it from the very beginning. Pikachu wasn't concerned with the actions or stories of others. No, it was so much more important that he was the center of attention. I'm happy to see that OP and their party finally got the courage to tell Pikachu to leave. But with someone as annoying and egotistical as Pikachu, I'm not exactly shocked at how things turned out. Now before we go, let's take a look at this week's Gallery of the Drake. This week's fan art comes from viewer Black and White Comic, and depicts me holding tightly to my waifu, who just so happens to be an adorable ghost girl named Dee, and one of the main characters of their very own webcomic. I think the art's pretty cute and the concept itself is pretty interesting, so I'll go ahead and link it down below if you want to check it out for yourself. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Drake, why did you choose Dee as your waifu? Well, you see, I actually have tons of other body pillows, but I keep coming back to this one, because Dee reminds me of all the women who have ghosted me. God, I'm so fucking lonely. Thank you again, Black and White Comic, for submitting your art. If you'd like to see your artwork featured in Gallery of the Drake, be sure to send it to the email in my About section. Fan art is my favorite part of doing YouTube, and it means the world to me that I can inspire artists like you to create artwork like this. With the story over and artwork displayed, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you feel like supporting the channel further, my Patreon link is in the description. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake.